It's New Year's Day, which means it's time to finally go over my Letterboxd stats for last year, because unlike certain apps, they give you a breakdown of your entire year, not just up to mid-December. So here are my Letterboxd stats for 2025. First of all, I managed to get a perfect 100 diary entries. I was on 95 diary entries on New Year's Eve, and I managed to squeeze in 5 short films just to get it up to 100, because I was so close to that perfect round number and I didn't want to miss out on it. So I don't do highest rated for the year lists, because if I then watch another film from this year later on, do I have to then go back and retroactively add it? That seems like a lot of work. I can't be bothered to be doing that, frankly. But it does show me the films I rated the highest during last year. One of them is Superman, which I rated 4.5 stars initially. I was fanboying a little bit. The second time I watched it, it went down to a 4. But I think 4 is firmly where I am with this. But it's not going to show that, because 4.5 is more than 4, so it's going to show you the highest rating that I gave for the film during this year, rather than the most recent one. And the second is very interesting, Papota, which is, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce, how to explain this, but it's a short film made by Cabriel. I'm still not sure how that's pronounced, and Paco Amoroso, to promote their EP of the same name. I'd never heard of these people. This is one of the 5 short films I watched on New Year's Eve, but I really loved this. I'm not really a music person. I like this more as a short film. It's a bit ironic. It's about the music industry, and it's about fakery and about AI and about the pretense and about the performativity, but it's also sort of a comedy. There's usually I find hip hop very self-serious and self-obsessed. These two tend to not quite be that. They tend to be a bit looser with it. But I'm definitely gonna be watching more of these people's stuff, even though I don't really know who they are or what's even going on a lot of the time. This is in, I think it's in Portuguese, is it? Spanish. But it has English subtitles, so it's unlike anything I've seen before. It blends so many different musical genres together into this sort of short musical, which is about so many different things. This is the kind of really exciting, energetic music that we don't really get in this country. And I'm not going to do the rest, because otherwise we'll be here all day. Let's see, my most active week was week 52, the 22nd to the 28th of December. What did I watch then? Of course, yeah, so I watched... There was several things, actually. There was Doctor Who, The Church on Ruby Road, Innes Lloyd, the producer, The Christmas Tree, The Snowman and the Snow Dog, Doctor Who, Joy to the World, Father Christmas, Shaun the Sheep, Fleece Navidad, and The Scarecrow's Wedding. It's because when it's the week of Christmas, that's when I'm always going to be watching the most things, because there's a lot on TV. So I don't think that's unusual. I've got 100 films logged, an average of 8.3 per month, which is an average of 1.9 per week. I'm not sure how that quite works out, because if it's less than 2 per week, how is it more than 8 per month? I don't really understand that. And then the most films I watched were on Sunday, which I suppose makes sense, because Sunday and Saturday are my 2 biggest days, because they're the weekend. That's when I'm watching films theatrically most of the time. Sunday, though, is often the day after I've watched something on Saturday, and I want to keep keep it going. So I'll watch something on Sunday. I don't really think there's anything to say about that. So the first film I watched this year, here are the milestones. The first film that I watched this year was The Wrong Trousers. And the reason for that is because, actually, hang on, if I go to my stats for 2024, the last film I watched in 2024 was Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. So I decided to start this year with The Wrong Trousers. That's why that was the first film I watched. The 50th was that was Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Infinity Castle on the 13th of December. That's a film I watched theatrically. And then the final film I watched was that 100th, one of those 5 short films on the 31st of December. It's called Don't Forget About Me, which is why that's also the last film. I would like to fill out more milestones this year, but I'm not going to force myself to watch things just to check them off the list, which is what Letterboxd sometimes can make you feel tempted to do. So here we come to the most watched section. This is kind of anomalous for this year, and I shall explain why. So first of all, we have Together, which I watched twice theatrically because I liked it so much the first time around, and it's on the shorter side. Then 12 Angry Men. I watched this because I wanted to write a review, so I watched it a second time, just in order to be more familiar with it. So I think I've now seen that 3 times in total. Then the rest of them are all Doctor Who specials. We've got Joy to the World, The Time of the Doctor, The Day of the Doctor, The Next Doctor, Voyage of the Damned and The Runaway Bride. This year I made a video reviewing every Doctor Who Christmas special, which I posted on Christmas Day in lieu of a Christmas special this year, and a lot of them were also being shown on TV as well. So what I would do is I'd find myself watching them to make notes for the video, but then they'd be on TV later that month, so I just watched them again. Although The Day of the Doctor is not a Christmas special, that was on TV during the Christmas period, and I also watched that. When did I watch that? In 2025. Yes, that was the 5th of May, which was the early May bank holiday. So that explains why I watched it then. And if you have a problem with so many of my most watched films of this year being Doctor Who specials, well, complain to Letterboxd about it, because they import all their data from the movie database. So if they're on the movie database, then they're on Letterboxd. And finally, my featured lists. I do year-end best-of lists for films I watched theatrically that year, because that's not going to change. 2025 is over now. I'm not going to watch any more films theatrically in 2025, so this list, I can put this up and know that I don't have to constantly be changing it. This I revealed in a video, which I specified at the beginning was a ranking of all the films that I watched in 2025 theatrically, regardless of what they are or when they were originally released. So from 10 to 1, we've got La Femme Garde, Weapons, Ballet to Broadway Wheeldon Works, Final Destination Bloodlines, Together, The Naked Gun, Thunderbolts, Superman, Kill Bill the Whole Bloody Affair, and then Back to the Future. And again, it's any film I watched theatrically in 2025, regardless of what it is or when it was first released. The number 1 for this year is Back to the Future, because it was re-released for its 40th anniversary, and it's the one I had the best time watching out of all the other films that I watched theatrically in 2025. I'm not going to do genres. I don't really like sort of doing like genres and stuff because it's very tenuous, the definitions, but as usual, most of the films I watched this year were American films in English. No surprise there. Themes and nano-genres. Again, I'm not really a fan of these. I've never found any use for them. They don't really tell me anything, and they're even more tenuous than macro genres. 2025 premieres were only 28%. See, that's the thing. Because I watched exactly 100 films this year, it's easy to break it down as a percentage. So 28 films out of 100, that's 28%. So that means that 72% of films I watched last year were released before 2025. 53% were rewatches of films I'd already seen, some of which were films I had watched for the first time that year, but then rewatched later that year. And then I've reviewed 29%. There's only one film released last year that I watched theatrically that I haven't reviewed yet, and that's The Lost Chapter: Yuki's Revenge, which was a short released with Kill Bill: The Whole Bloody Affair. I've just got that to review, and then I'm caught up, and I ought to do that before this weekend, because I might go out to watch Marty Supreme, and I don't want to have a backlog of reviews. My average rating was 3, which is to be expected. The more films you watch, the more mediocre they become, because the higher standards you develop. That's kind of the curse I have. I still don't really understand what this is. Like, so I watched 22 films that were in my watch list. Is that what that means? And I added 53 of them. But a lot of them I'll add and then delete, because I'm very loose with my watch list. My definition of whether I want to watch something will change. Like, I'll be in the mood for something, but then later on I won't be. So I don't really tend to pay attention to this particular statistic. So my most watched actors for this year, there's a lot of Doctor Who actors here. David Tennant is my most watched actor overall, with 9 films. This is actually the second year he's been my most watched actor. Let's see, so if I sort by film name, that makes it easier. So he was in Doctor Who Planet of the Dead, Doctor Who The Christmas Invasion, Doctor Who The Day of the Doctor, Doctor Who The Giggle, Doctor Who The Next Doctor, Doctor Who The Runaway Bride, Doctor Who Voyage of the Damned, as well as Macbeth and The Thursday Murder Club. So I think it's all those Doctor Who specials that really pushed him all the way up to the number 9 slot. Otherwise, he'd have only been in 2. So, but then the one I rated the highest, who was that? Ah, yes, Aaron Smolinski, a name that not many people will know. But Aaron Smolinski was actually, he was the infant Kal-El in Superman and Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. Both of which I watched leading up to the Superman from this year. So Aaron Smolinski sort of comes out on top with 4.5 on average, because those are the only films he was in that I watched last year, and I rated them both 4.5. In terms of directors, there are 2 directors who are my most watched. There's Armando Iannucci, who directed Spinners and Losers, The Death of Stalin, and In the Loop. There was no particular reason that he has 3 in my diary this year. It's really just a coincidence. There was no thought process behind it. I didn't even realise I had watched 3 of his films this year. The other one is Robert Zemeckis, and that's because after I watched Back to the Future, I decided to re-watch the other 2 as well, because I got into a Back to the Future-y mood. So that's the reason for that. That makes a lot more sense. But who did I rate the highest? Aha, so there are 3 people I rated the highest. There's Richard Donner, who, because of Superman and Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, gets an average rating of 4.5, because I watched those leading up to the new Superman by James Gunn. Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, I rated that 4.5. What's the... what did I rate the other one? The original theatrical release. Did I... yeah, Countdown to Superman. Superman 2. Yes, the one directed by Richard Lester. I only rated that 3.5. So there we go, that's why Richard Donner comes out on top. And then Toby Haynes, he only had 1 film I watched this year, but it was Doctor Who: A Christmas Carol, which is a special, but still, and that was 4.5 stars. And then the other one was Martin Piroyansky, who directed Papota. And he wouldn't have been in my top directors if I hadn't watched that at the end of the year, at the last moment. So that's why I really love these things, because it's it never really goes the way you expect. Now, I'm not going to do a complete breakdown of crew and studios. That's really... we'd just be here all day if I tried to do them all. So Producers Marcus Wilson and Kevin Feige. Writers Stephen Moffat. Original writers Jack Kirby. Story Mario Puzo. Casting Andy Pryor and Sarah Halley Finn. Editors Harry Keramides and Arthur Schmidt. Cinematography Neville Kidd, Stephen Pearson, Dean Cundy and Jeffrey Unsworth. Assistant directors David McGiffert. Additional directing David Tomlin. Executive producers Stephen Moffat. Lighting Mark Wallflower. Camera operators Peter MacDonald, John Harris, John Morgan, Ginger Gemmell. Production design Michael Pickwoad. Art direction Norman Reynolds, Ernest Archer and Morris Fowler. Set decoration Adrian Anscombe. Special effects Alison Gainzer. Visual effects Wes Takahashi, Jared Sandrew and Roy Field. Title design Matt Curtis. Stunts Walter Scott, Charles Crowell, Clay Cullen, Chris Palermo and Andy Gill. Choreography Brad Jeffries. Composers Murray Gold. Sound Charles L. Campbell, William B. Kaplan, Greg Orloff, Kevin Schultz and Kevin Young. Costume design Howard Burden and Joanna Johnston. Makeup Barbara Southcott. Hairstyling Dorothy Byrne. Studios BBC Cymru Wales. And if I do highest rated, so producers Charles F. Greenlaw, Michael Thor, Derek Hoffman and San Wallenberg. Writers Robert Zemeckis. Original writers Charles Dickens. Story by Mario Puzo. Casting Jane Feinberg. Editors Stuart Baird, Michael Ellis, Michael Thor and Adam Recht. Cinematography Henry Braham and Jeffrey Unsworth. Assistant directors Pamela M. Eilerson. Additional directing Frank Marshall. Executive producers Beth Willis. Lighting Maurice Gillette and John Tythe. Camera operators James A. Contner, Howard A. Anderson III, James Devis, Mike Fox and Roy Ford. Additional photography Ray Gilberti. Production design Lawrence G. Paul. Art direction Todd Hallowell. Set decoration Hal Gorsman, Cameron Burney. Special effects Zoran Perisic, R. A. MacDonald, John Richardson, Michael Dunleavy and Brian Warner. Visual effects Charlie Mullen, Philip Norwood and Ellen Lichtward Goodchild. Title design Nina Saxon. Stunts Max Cleven, Spyro Rosatos, Per Wallinder, Lauren Janes and Bernie Pock. Choreography Brad Jeffries. Composers John Murphy, David Fleming and John Williams. Songs Huey Lewis. Sound Gary A. Hecker, Takeo Ogawa, Larry Singer and Robert R. Rutledge. Costume design Deborah L. Scott. Makeup Nick Maley, Louis Lane, or is that Louis Lane? Basil Newell, Connie Reeve and Jamie Brown. Hairstyling Elizabeth Rabe and Studios DC and 5020 Records. My most liked review was my 3-star review of Weapons, which has been liked by 2 people, one of whom is my friend Steve, and then the other one is Medium Lebowski. They both rated it an extra half-star more than I did. I don't know who Medium Lebowski is. The highest rated film I watched this year on average is 12 Angry Men, which has an average rating of 4.63 based on 1,270,452 ratings. The lowest average, the film with the lowest average that I watched this year is Doctor Who Legend of the Sea Devils, which I watched on Easter, which has an average rating of 2.31 based on 5,455 ratings. The most popular film I watched this year is Sinners, which has been watched how many times? 3.3 million. 3,334,220 members. The most obscure film I watched this year is so obscure it doesn't even have a poster. It's Erich von Stroheim, The Profligate Genius. I watched this because I discovered that Lucasfilm has started posting some of its short documentaries to YouTube, presumably because it realises that's the only way anyone is going to watch them again. This has only been watched by 9 people, and I'm one of them. And I've no idea who any of these other people are. the newest film I watched was Shaun the Sheep Fleece Navidad, which premiered on the 25th of December. The oldest film I watched this last year was Brief Encounter, which was first released on the 13th of November 1945. This was on one lunchtime when I needed something to watch, and I figured because it was not even feature length that I'd watch it, so it wasn't really a big investment. The longest film I watched this year was Kill Bill The Whole Bloody Affair, which I watched on the 7th of December. This has a running time of 247 minutes, because it's two other films put together, and they were already pretty long on their own anyway. And then the shortest film I watched is Nicolo, which is 5 minutes long. That's one of the 5 short films I watched on New Year's Eve. And this is a wonderful film. Hand-drawn. I love those. No dialogue. Absolutely beautiful. Exquisite. And every single film I watched in 2025. Do I list them all, really? Yeah, let's do that. The Wrong Trousers, Doctor Who, Eve of the Daleks, The Physics of Sorrow, Kung Con Shakespeare, Paris is Burning, Seven Samurai, A Complete Unknown, Rear Window, Witness for the Prosecution, All About Eve, Macbeth, In the Loop, The Death of Stalin, Doctor Who, A New Dimension, Prey, Doctor Who, Planet of the Dead, It's the Easter Beagle, Charlie Brown, Doctor Who, Legend of the Sea Devils, Macbeth, Sinners, Black Panther, Thunderbolts, Doctor Who, The Day of the Doctor, The Avengers, Aftersun, Final Destination Bloodlines, Royal Ballet and Opera 2024-25 Ballet to Broadway Wealden Works, Superman 2, The Death and Return of Superman, Long Live Superman, Superman 2 The Richard Donner Cut, Superman, Fantastic Four, The Fantastic Four First Steps, The Fantastic Four First Steps, David Bowie Jazzing for Blue Jean, The Naked Gun, Weapons, Together, 12 Angry Men, The Thursday Murder Club, About a Boy, The Godfather, Jeff Buckley Live in Chicago, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Infinity Castle, Brief Encounter, The 1975 At Their Very Best Life in Madison Square Garden, One Battle After Another, Born Free, It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, Back to the Future, The Making of Back to the Future, The World of John Ford, Eric von Stroheim, The Profligate Genius, Royal Ballet and Opera 2025-26 La Female Garde, Back to the Future Part 2, Back to the Future Part 3, Doctor Who The Giggle, Nobody, Doctor Who Joy to the World, Spinners and Losers, Doctor Who The Christmas Invasion, Doctor Who The Runaway Bride, Doctor Who Voyage of the Damned, Doctor Who The Next Doctor, Doctor Who The Runaway Bride, Kill Bill The Whole Bloody Affair, The Lost Chapter Yuki's Revenge, Doctor Who A Christmas Carol, Doctor Who The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, Doctor Who The Snowmen, Doctor Who The Time of the Doctor, A Charlie Brown Christmas, Doctor Who Voyage of the Damned, Doctor Who Last Christmas, Doctor Who The Husbands of River Song, Doctor Who The Next Doctor, Doctor Who The Day of the Doctor, Doctor Who The Time of the Doctor, Doctor Who The Return of Doctor Mysterio, Doctor Who Twice Upon a Time, Doctor Who The Church on Ruby Road, Innes Lloyd The Producer, The Christmas Tree, The Snowman and the Snow Dog, Doctor Who Joy to the World, Father Christmas, Shaun the Sheep Fleece Navidad, The Scarecrow's Wedding, Brighter Days Ahead, Niccolo, Papota, The Godman, and Don't Forget About Me. All 100. And finally, the world map. See, I got 48 films from the United States, and 46 films from the UK, 4 from Canada, 4 from France, 2 from Germany, 1 from Belgium, really that's it for Europe. 1 from Argentina, 2 from Australia, 2 from Japan, I didn't even hesitate to extend that far. That's it, actually. The highly rated films I'm yet to see from 2025 are Johann Sacre Bleu, Laufey's A Night at the Symphony Hollywood Bowl, Chainsaw Man the Movie Reze Arc, The Voice of Hind Rajab, Marty Supreme, which I'm actually thinking about seeing this weekend, National Theatre Live, The Importance of Being Earnest, Bjork, Cornucopia, and Sentimental Value. So that's my Letterboxd Stats for 2025. Thank you for watching.